All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome everybody to August's edition of the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports monthly webinar. I'm Marty Hogan. I'll be moderating this webinar. Today is a really interesting topic, kind of all the rage right now over kind of targeting the more younger generations, stuff like that. But we have the guys from Northwoods Collective here, and they're going to be presenting on the proper care and feeding of millennials. And we have the managing partners of Northwoods here. We have AJ DeRosa, the creative director, who claims he gets to do all the fun things, and Chet Hervey, the business director, who gets to do the boring paperwork and whatnot. So with that, I'm going to let these guys take over and let you know what they have in store.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Just a couple of overviews. For anybody that was at the symposium, you got our publication called Hunt Rising, which after that event we decided to actually make it a biannually publication. We're a little bit in the kind of soft launch startup phase, but if you check out r3industry.com, the initial website's up. There's an opportunity to sign up for emails. Eventually we'll put up a subscription portal on there. It is going to be a free publication. We're just going to make sure that people identify themselves as an actual industry person before we start sending that out. We'll also work through issues like different agencies or whatnot that need more than one publication sent to a location. So I highly suggest that everybody that's interested in that, please hop on there, get your email in there. Forgive any kind of the mistakes that are on there. My copy editor hasn't went through every publication. And there's a couple errors here and there because we kind of rushed to get it up there, but it is live. So please check it out. So to start this out, everybody's here today for the proper care and feeding of millennials. So obviously, as Marty said, millennials is kind of a hot topic these days, and there's a lot of important reasons why. And we're going to get into that today, and we're going to get into some things that are kind of off the radar, I guess you could say. So first couple things, or first section of this is breaking myths with facts. Millennials are the largest generation right now. They're also the largest workforce. They spend $200 billion a year, but the most important part of the stat, and I actually just figured this out yesterday as I was trying to make sure that some sources were cited, because I know a lot of people want to know where this information is coming from, are just as interested as we are. By the end of 2018, it's believed that millennials will spend more per year than any other generation. That right there is a reason why millennials are important, because there's money. The other thing is, I wrote here a millennial is someone born between 1980 and 2000. This thing, some people say 1982 to 2000, some people say 1980 to 1996, 1982 to 1996. There's kind of a disputed realm. I went with this number just because it's the widest spread. It encompasses a few people. Chet, my business partner, is probably a little more horrified because now he fell into it. I lose my claim as the first millennial because I'm born in 1982, so now I've become like a third generation, third year millennial. So let's move into the meat of this. So when I started Project Upland, and this presentation is primarily based on the research that we've done in that brand, I was told by outdoor marketing professionals who were my friends that my model would fail. Millennials have no money, they do not want to hunt, they're lazy, advertisers will never get on board, and you cannot change your culture. The only statement they said that was true is you cannot change your culture. And because of that, millennials are a godsend to R3 because millennial culture is what's going to save hunting. Project Upland is a millennial culture. So let's think about some important stats that can help us out with that. Some of you may have hunting magazines telling you that subscriptions are down, but according to Forbes magazine, millennials are reading more than baby boomers. 80% of millennials versus 67% of baby boomers. Now, you're probably saying, well, they read all digital. 92% of millennials prefer to read a physical printed copy of a book or magazine. So what are hunting magazines doing wrong? I mean, that's the question that we come to. When we go further into millennial reading habits, it starts to paint a much different picture than many people have led us to believe. 90% are on Facebook and reading the content that passes through there. 93% read reviews before a product purchase, and 74% get their news online. I also want to point out that millennials are less likely to fall for falsified media and scams online than Generation X and baby boomers. That's an important stat because a lot of people say, oh, well, they get their stuff online, there's nothing credible. Millennials are concerned about that kind of stuff. Let's move on to our next slide here. Film and millennials. Almost half of adults 22 to 45 years old are watching absolutely no content on traditional TV platforms, according to a new study. Doesn't seem like they're lazy now, does it? In fact, millennials watch less TV than any other previous generation, yet the hunting industry still thinks cable has relevance. And the largest preferred method for video consumption is Facebook. Moving on. Authenticity is the most important word when it comes to millennials. The thing about millennials, they actually have a strict standard as far as what they want. Now, some may have interpreted this as they are entitled or difficult, but in reality, they're calling BS where BS is due. In fact, 70% of millennials either had a negative view or a neutral view on celebrity endorsement. Think about the logic. Do you think a professional sports player knows your coffee preference better than you? No, they don't. Because the BS to call here is that they got paid a boatload of money to say whatever they were paid to say on something they know nothing about. And we all know it, not just millennials. Yet 89% of millennials trust influencers. So what is an influencer? An influencer can be a brand or person who is part of the fabric of a culture. Their words hold weight because they want to walk the walk. And 44% of millennials say they are more likely to trust professionals they do not know. This is social proofing, or what we call authenticity. Project Upland has harnessed many of these traits. We sell novices as novices, professionals as professionals, with the passion of our culture as the influence that ebbs and flows with everyday people that makes up the Upland community. So what is the experienced generation? Goldman Sachs summed it up pretty good. It is the generation that follows their dreams at all costs. Despite what many think or have been told, millennials do have money, and more importantly, they are far more willing to blow it on experience than any other generation we have contended with. 45% of millennials don't see the content being produced as something worthwhile to share. I would be horrified to learn what that number was if that study included only hunting media. Because you need to remember that this isn't just some YouTuber's content. This is included in the next Star Wars trailer and every other professionally produced piece of content. 98% of millennials felt more inclined to purchase a product if they participated in an experiential campaign, which isn't just popping a tent and saying, hey, I'm a brand. It's about being part of a consumer, a thread of fabric in that culture. The same study also found that 60% said they'd share content if they thought it was thought-provoking or intelligent, only now narrowing the realm of shareability more for millennials. According to Eventbrite, 78% of millennials would rather spend their money on a desirable experience than on a physical product. The death of retail is not here. It is actually just changing. Most businesses sell their experience-based products such as movie tickets, water parks, and ski resorts are doing better. That's the best news I've given so far here, as hunting license is actually an experience-based product. Hunting will be a desirable experience if we approach it with experiential marketing. It is a desirable experience. What we need to do is cut through the super hunter market and get to the real stories that make up our culture. So let's talk about some hunting stats that we do know about millennials that we've captured inside of the Project Upland realm. We call Project Upland a millennial hunting platform only because it's the largest population of our base. But don't let it fool you. Project Upland still has a large following in both Generation X and baby boomers, because the reality is the finite message that millennials want also appeals to other generation. authenticity is a universal marketing language. Just to be clear, Project Upland is not a small platform. In 2017, it did 1.5 million views on its films, more than any other single platform in the upland space, including nonprofits and television shows. Project Upland found that 55% of its audience lived in suburban and urban areas, much different than common perception that hunting is primarily a rural audience subject. Income was between $100,000 and $9,000 a year, $150,000 a year, let's call it, more than most hunting media outlets that have their largest core demographics in baby boomers. Only 18% of our demographics came from the South, far lower than any other previous hunting stat. Now, there's nothing wrong with being from the South, but the future may hold a different spread than the industry has been used to. On the right column, we have some great stats on how much people are actually participating in hunting. Average number of days of field was 21 days, with 3 overnight trips, and 64% went on out-of-state hunting trips. The national average for small game hunters in the field was 11 days, and 7 for migratory birds, which some of our coverage falls into. 79% said they preferred watching video online, which is great because it costs almost nothing in comparison to TV show airtime. Only 22.74% preferred TV, and coming in at a close second to video, 42.44% of our audience loves print, aka magazines. That's why in September, Project Upland will actually announce Project Upland Magazine, which is being published by the award-winning team at Covey Rise, along with award-winning editor Matt Soberg. I want to put it out there that so many people understand that our shift in the landscape has not just resulted in the decline of business, it is becoming a golden age for some of us. Maybe that's because many brands fall into the old methods with the fear of decline, which only hurts their brands more. Some may urge the credit of some larger media outlets is unrepairable. What I do know is that the fresh perspective of millennial marketing is on the rise in the hunting industry. Moving on. All right, now we're going to get into some more fun stuff here. Oh, and actually, I did want to mention one other stat in that last one that I missed. And you can actually find this when you look at the whole survey. 30% of the Project Upland culture identified themselves as first-generation hunters, which means that neither of their parents were hunters. All right, so getting on to some questions we asked about agree-disagree questions. Here's what we found out. 87% either agreed or strongly agreed that Project Upland accurately represents me as a hunter. Only 1% disagreed. That's a big contrast, but not as big as this. Only 12% agreed or strongly agreed that cable hunting shows accurately represent them as a hunter. 47% disagreed or strongly disagreed. Now, when we ask this agree-disagree question, it's really supported more in the theory of a new culture. Mind you, I'm sure that the simple interest in Project Upland's unique platform makes it more likely that people are going to favor our platform. But this is still a snapshot of how this culture is changing. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to ask everybody to participate here as much as they can. Please type your response if you want to. If not, just think about this in your head or write it down in front of you. I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree with the following statement. The statement is, I think hunting is an activity in which an individual competes against another or others for entertainment. So, anybody, please put it up there. Give everybody a couple seconds here. Well, I appreciate the input here. Everybody's some great answers. All right, looks like everybody put in their answers. So when we asked this question, 87% either disagreed or strongly disagreed on the Project Upland of the Project Upland audience. This is from a hunting audience, and from the comments I see, it looks like everyone else is on the same page. I definitely saw some other answers where people are like, hey, depends on the situation. 100% agree. There's certainly parts of our culture, especially in upland, bird dog circuits, stuff like that, where that competition vibe comes out, and still is an important part of our culture. And I want to be clear that I'm not trying to say, hey, don't be competitive. What this has to do is about the word sport. To be clear, the definition of the word sport is an activity in which an individual competes against one another or others for entertainment. Yet as the industry, we think an outward message using the term hunting and sport interchangeably will attract new hunters. This is not a failure of millennial culture. This is a failure of current hunting media trends being stuck in the Stone Age. We have made a strong effort to remove the word sport from all of our content and lead discussions with other words like pursuit and lifestyle. Trust me, I screw it up all the time. One of the underlying messages here is that millennials want authenticity. I could go down some serious rabbit holes on what authenticity is and isn't, but if we cannot do something as basic as use the words they understand and can relate to, well, then we're not going to get them to take up hunting to begin with. And one more big thing before we move on to the next part of this presentation, which is, again, debunking another fact or what we believe to be a fact. And that's this. If you think liberals will never hunt, I can prove you wrong. I am, in fact, a liberal. Please, no comments. No comments on that. All right, so here's the bomb of the day. Why conservation doesn't matter. Now, maybe I should have said I am a liberal and followed that up with the title, Why Conservation Does Matter, but I'm going to have everybody bear with me here. This is a marketing statement to be specific. Don't put the cart before the horse. To really grasp this, we need to think about what the goal of R3 is. If the goal of R3 was conservation, there are in fact easier roads to get folks to donate money and time. It's easy to arouse the public with polar bears desperate to find ice and as the face of climate change, or to show a dead rhino with his horn sawed off, or several other things that can provoke folks to donate and care. The real goal of R3 is to get more people to buy hunting and fishing licenses and more gear. That's the horse. In turn, we collect taxes for the North American conservation model, which is in fact the wagon. We're going to do another exercise here. I'm going to state a common phrase that you have all heard many times. When I state that phrase, I want you to take a few seconds to write down what emotion you felt and say it. If you feel like you want to, please type it in. I'd love to get people's feedback. So here it is, right up there. Hunting is conservation. What do people think? Truth sauce. I like that one. I'll give it a little longer here to let everybody respond. So, oh, got a couple more people. Let me let them get up here. All right. So I want to point out something here. Everybody is invoking emotion based on the industry we're in. We're frustrated. We're saying, oh, people don't understand. There's all sorts of things. But if you put your seat inside the perspective of somebody from the outside looking in who might never heard of R3 or anything like that, the reality is this question, or this statement rather, hunting is conservation, gets crickets. Or in some cases, you can get things that are even worse. I want to move on to the next one, and we're going to do another exercise here. This one is hunting is killing. I want everybody to react. What is your feeling about that statement? I want your emotion. How does that statement make you feel? And please type it in the side there. That's a good one, Kurt. That's pretty accurate. Good analogy. All right. I'm going to throw this out here. Everybody reacted a little more aggressively on this one. Everybody was a little more emotional, and that kind of gets to my point. So I can assure you that the publicly certainly feels emotion to that phrase. Images of decades of iconic marketing of the likes of Bambi in the latest Netflix documentary, and maybe a dent in a lion flash before their eyes in a wave of emotion. This is what we would call an arousal campaign. If I had to place a bet on the emotions we invoked with this phrase, I would put money that some of us are anger, second is frustration. Anger and frustration are both forms of arousal, which leads to more caring, which leads to more sharing. This is how social epidemics begin. Depending on what we want people to do and when they hear it, what we have to say determines what type of emotion we aim to invoke with our messages. For example, if we want people to take action, perhaps one of the best emotions to evoke is anger. Now, how angry did everyone get when we said hunting is conservation? Not many of us did. Not many of us were like, hey, I'm angry about hunting being conservation. Maybe some of us are frustrated because that message hasn't got out. The point here is that we do not feel anger, awe, excitement, anxiety, or amusement for the statement, hunting is conservation. That is the fact of marketing, and the psychological end of that is a dead end. There are many problems with marketing campaign hunting is conservation. The first being the fact that the word hunting is quickly associated with killing, and the word conservation never gets its day. There are certainly words and phrases which act as triggers, and the word is hunting is just that. When we hear peanut butter, we think jelly. When we hear apple, we think of the color red. And when we hear hunting, well, many of the public think of killing. The fact is that when someone hears hunting is conservation, it's far easier for them to make the leap to, you have to justify your killing of animals by saying it's conservation, a lot faster and easier than let's save the wild turkey. So let us take this a step deeper into why these leaps are easier than hunting as conservation being a synonymous term. Yes, that is Nancy Reagan, for everybody that's thinking about that. As far as the public concerned, hunting is a private act. We have created an isolationist culture, and in the quest to make it public and garner support, the hunting world has put more and more momentum behind the concept that society has to accept hunting. Hunters have justified this feeling or concept with hunting as conservation. The fact of the matter is that if we want hunting to succeed, or more accurately, we want R3 to succeed, it is up to hunting to comply with society, not the other way around. So how do we do that? The answer to this was actually discovered by accident when First Lady Nancy Reagan launched the Just Say No campaign. Drugs up to this point were a private activity. What the campaign did was made the activity public, giving kids social proof that other kids were doing drugs. After years of the campaign running, studies actually showed that kids ages 12 to 18 were more likely to smoke marijuana than after seeing the ads. So what does this tell us? We need to make hunting public, but in a positive fashion. Our instincts have always been, well, a positive fashion is conservation. The only proof we need that the marketing campaign failed is because we're having this webinar, and organizations like the Council are trying to pick up the pieces of this very failed campaign. No presentation is complete without Popeye. So let me kind of rephrase this. Let me paint one more picture of why hunting is conservation just doesn't work. Let's look at Popeye. The spinach industry credits Popeye with a 1/3 boost in spinach consumption. To be clear, spinach didn't make Popeye cool, just like conservation won't make hunting cool in the eyes of the public. Popeye became cool, and then people wanted to emulate Popeye. Making hunting cool and conservation comes along for the ride. Again, getting down to that theory of, don't put the cart before the horse. So how do we do that? That's the ultimate question, right? Make hunting the good life in the eyes of the public. It's that simple, because that message is authentic. But bringing hunting public cannot be a hero shot of a record book buck or a whack 'em and stack 'em campaign. It's not selling people on a dream of unaffordable destinations, because none of that is authentic to the user. It is not real. It's an experiential campaign, and that is, and that good life invokes emotion. It is the hunter that cries on camera after shooting his first trucker in an awe-inspiring backdrop of Hell's Canyon while hugging his dog. It is the narrative that carries people on a journey of self-discovery through the outdoors. It is the adventure in our backyard, the coming victory of a weekend warrior. It's the real people, the real places, the real experiences. That is authenticity. So this comes down to the kind of the question of what we're led here is how to feed millennials. And one of the most important things I want to paint here is that not all content is created equal. And I'm going to give you a brief blurb from a review of one of my favorite books. Information travels under the guise of idle chatter. Like a Trojan horse, can your stories get others to open the gate of their minds to hear it, share it, buy it, or take another action to spread it? That reference is about stories. But we must be understanding that stories must hit the highest standards, products of artistic filmmakers, photographers, and storytellers. It cannot be a bit of low-quality videography and poor messaging, or advertorial, because in 2018, millennials will continue to demand the best. They require authenticity, even in the artistic expression. Your competition is not the latest hunting show on cable network. The competition is the next Star Wars film, the next outdoor adventure, the reason of why to leave the city this weekend. And to do that, our media needs to be as good as the biggest fish in the whole ocean if we ever want millennials to come into our tiny pond. In short, much of our content made today has a stickiness problem. We don't need to just get our message in front of someone. We need that message to actually stick. Not all content is created equal. And if you can see from these two photos, image on the left is a Project Upland image. Image on the right is not a Project Upland image. But image on the right is what upland culture has experienced for ever, essentially. And that image right there is not going to do anything good for recruiting hunters. I can tell you that. As we're on the left, I mean, that dog looks beautiful, and secondarily, the pheasant looks beautiful too. But nevertheless, that dog's making that look good. And if there's one thing you're going to take away from this webinar, I want everybody to remember this. Not all content is created equal, and that is one of the biggest failures we see across the industry. So the final slide I'm going to leave everybody with before we get into questions, and I don't want to drop the biggest bomb ever, but this is a bomb. I want people to remember this. Generation Z is literally around the corner. Let that motivate you to solve the millennial problem immediately. According to Goldman Sachs, Generation Z will soon overshadow millennials in size and influence. Born device in hand, Generation Z is America's first generation of true digital natives, and they will be America's most diverse to date, the first to be a majority of non-white. They are even more conservative with money than millennials. This doesn't mean that the millennial problem goes away. Millennials have a long way to go till they're retiring from hunting. Some of the groundwork needed for Generation Z needs to be learned with millennials. And you know what the most important piece of that groundwork is? Adaptability. This is the one trait above all this industry has failed at. Northwoods Collective has already begun market research in relation to Generation Z, is currently laying out strategies in our platform to reach them. Our goal is that in 5 years we will have practical methods through trial and error, as well as data to accurately and effectively engage Generation Z. And that's what I have for my actual core of the presentation. And I'm sure it looks like some people already put in some stuff here about questions.
Thanks, AJ. That's great. I'll just kind of moderate these questions as we go forward. But yeah, cool. Everybody feel free to ask questions in the bottom right-hand chat box, and we'll get through as many as we can in the next 25 minutes until we hit 2 o'clock. And then if we have any additional questions, we'll post them to the R3 community and have these guys post a response to them as well. So we'll just go ahead and jump into it. Dean has a question. Guys, Northwoods is currently focused on upland game birds and turkey hunting. I know you're about to roll out a waterfowl hunting platform as well. What do you know about millennial interest in small game hunting versus big game hunting experiences?
I'd honestly refer to the majority of the data that a lot of us are aware of, and that's, forgive me if some of these years are off, but my understanding is that 1982 was the peak of hunting numbers, and if you look at the data, there was twice as many small game hunters as there were big game hunters. In 2018, that statistic's reversed, so there's twice as many big game hunters as there are small game hunters. Really what I think that comes down to is small game hunting can be replicated a lot easier than big game hunting can. I can go to a pheasant field that's stocked for pheasant, and somebody can go back there and do it again, whether they have a dog or not. Same with rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting. So I think that's a very important aspect. I think small game hunting plays a significant role in any kind of new recruitment, not necessarily just millennials, but it's just an easier jump.
Great. I had a question off of the chat that somebody wanted to ask. They were wondering about the 21 days of field. Is that just for millennials?
No, that's actually, so I should clarify, all of the statistics that we actually showed were the whole platform. When I was putting together, I did actually kind of think in my head, should I break this down between what is just the millennial thing or what the overall thing is? My ultimate decision to show as a full integration here is that I want people to really take from this that marketing to millennials doesn't alienate Generation X. It doesn't alienate baby boomers. So you can put together a full-on campaign like Project Upland that when we put a film together, when we make our next editorial strategy, our strategy is aimed at millennials. But the reality is that baby boomers love authenticity as well, and they actually love that individual story, that individual perspective. So I wanted to show that we could have kind of a mutual community there. Honestly, Jesse, if he was able to call in today, I would have said that he might have been able to answer a lot more accurately on what the breakdown was per millennials versus Generation X versus baby boomers.
Awesome. Nicole asks, do you feel the local food movement is a platform to explore and to make hunting cool?
I think there's two things in that. I think the local food movement is a fringe market. So fringe markets are places where people are already engaged in an activity where it makes them more likely to participate in something like hunting. We spend a lot of time as an organization at the Outdoor Retailer Show operating in stuff like trying to get accounts with rock climbing companies or, backpacking, all that kind of stuff. Anywhere where that jump from hunter to, or rather from non-hunter to hunter is a lot easier. I think that the food movement lends credibility to hunting. The question of making hunting cool or not, it's like, what do you define cool as? I think it makes it cool in the sense that it gives us the street cred to break that stigma that it's not about antlers, it's not about the biggest animal. That, in fact, for some of us, it's about a sustainable food source. And millennials are more concerned with their health, organic movements than any of the previous generations. So in that factor, according to millennials, yeah, it makes it cooler.
Awesome. And I think you just kind of touched on this, but Dean asked, do you think it's easier for to get millennials that have already fished or already are a fisherman interested in hunting experiences? And maybe you can just kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, fishing is a fringe market there. Ironically, I think that as much as catch and release is caught on, my wife, who's 26 years old, every time we pull a fish in the boat, she says, "Can we eat this one?" I think for millennials, we're more practical. I know the few times that I've filmed ice fishing films in my career, I walked out there and people pulled pike into the boat and, they put it back, and I was like, wait a minute, we're not going to eat that thing? And they were like, no. And my response to that as a millennial is, well, then what are we doing here? Because that's how I feel about it. So, yeah, I think that, for millennials, and again, that's getting a little into Nicole's thing. My thing is, if you're not going to eat it, why are you doing it? And that becomes a slippery slope because stuff like coyote hunting, trapping, there's a lot of significance and importance in fur trapping, and some people do, see that, but it's a far bigger jump for people.
It's so targeting people that have already kind of have a foot into in the door to the outdoor industry is a great way to kind of just focus on there as a start. But we have another question here. How do you balance managing an audience on your own platform versus using an existing platform such as YouTube or something else?
So how do I balance utilizing either one?
Right, I guess YouTube is a platform, Facebook, those are all platforms you can spread your message. How do you guys utilize those platforms to increase your guys' platform, I guess is?
Okay, we're very digital aggressive because we're a millennial platform. More importantly, even past that Generation Z. That is a massive part of what we are as an organization. I pointed out stats like Facebook is the preferred method for people to watch video. We've been very aggressive on Facebook. We've recently become aggressive on YouTube, which has really worked out for us. Instagram right now is the hottest platform of 2018, and further than that is the best platform for Generation Z because Generation Z actually thinks that Facebook is lame, and I know that because every single one of our Generation Z aged interns tells me that, as well as statistics also support that statement. So those are very important. And the big thing about those platforms is that that's your source in. It's not a television show, and it's not even a magazine. Even though I've given some credit here to magazines, the reality is that YouTube's free, Facebook is free for the most part. Obviously, we can advertise, and Instagram's free. The days of paying for airtime on the Outdoor Channel or Sportsman Channel or Pursuit, whatever it is, are gone. I mean, the day of spending money to get magazine, space is shrinking because those magazines are shrinking. Not our magazine, just for the record, but so the reality here is that these are the most important platforms that you can actually be engaged in. And further past this, and I didn't want to go down those rabbit holes, there are serious methodology that goes on to all of those. And the most important word in this presentation related to that is adaptability. Chet will give credence to the fact that on the creative end of our agency, we are obsessive about the changes that come along, the changes in Google algorithms, the changes in YouTube algorithms, the changes in Facebook, Instagram. We constantly have to adapt to be relevant. And that adaptation for one platform might be 5 years, it might be a year, it might be 5 days, it might be a month. Facebook, as of the beginning of this year, drastically changed. We saw a huge decline on that platform. We responded by diversifying our presence in other platforms. It paid off for us. We're still doing well on Facebook, but that's because we adapted to what Facebook now demands. We didn't just keep using a broken system. So the most important thing about that lesson and these social platforms is adaptability. Change, change, change. Read, listen to podcasts, see what's happening. That data is not unique to our industry. It's unique to the whole country. And there are tons of people that are very qualified constantly updating that information for us to consume.
Awesome. Don wants to know if you have any suggestions on where to find like multicultural images for millennial hunters or some other resources that they may be able to utilize in their own work.
I mean, that's a tough one. It's something that we've more recently struggled with to add to the response of Generation Z, or more accurately add to the cultural diversity of our platform. An organization like us, we're trying to diversify, make sure that we get images of different ethnicities. We've had a strong effort forward towards women, which has essentially already succeeded, but honestly, it's in its infant stages for even a platform as progressive as us. And all we can do is strive to do that. We're working every day to work on that. We have photo shoots that we're doing for catalogs and all sorts of stuff for big commercial agencies that we're trying to make sure that ethnic diversity is ending up in. So it's happening. As far as a proactive availability, unless you can contact an agency to get kind of that a la carte, like this is what I need, that's a tough thing to just kind of jump in somewhere to get it.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys have any unique insights throughout your travels and your filmings and whatnot on how to get some urban kids, urban millennials out into the field, or have you seen any traditional tactics that don't work?
So just to give and I'm going to try to make this brief as possible, the start of this organization was originally Dangerous Cow Publishing, which became Northwoods Collective. My start in the industry, that was my company. I wrote a book called The Urban Deer Complex. I grew up just outside of the city of Boston. I was an urban and suburban hunter. That was the culture I knew. My mentor was a guy from Lawrence, Massachusetts, who was a professional car thief from Puerto Rico. And he, to this day, is one of the best hunters I have ever known. I grew up inside of that bubble. The bubble there, or what pushed me out, and this is the best way I can do is give my own experience, is even as an urban hunter, I wanted to escape. I went out into a tree stand because I found a calling or a beauty in the fact that Mother Nature was pushing back against suburban and urban America and saying, hey, I'm still here. White-tailed deer aren't going to walk away. But as I pushed further into that, I wanted the ability to go further north, go further into the wilderness, and get excitement in that. That chase was small game. And the important lesson in that is, as a hardcore deer hunter, and when I wrote the book, The Urban Deer Complex, I took hunting for mature bucks very seriously. I thought it was funny or ridiculous for somebody to tell me, well, go to northern New England and hunt a big buck, A, because there's less than there are outside of Boston, and B, I can't put in the time or resources I could when I'm working my job and put up cameras and tree stands and all those things. But I wanted the rural wilderness. I wanted the outdoors. How I did that was through small game. I could go up for 2-3 days during the week, and I could hunt ruffed grouse and woodcock, and I could be as hardcore as I wanted to, and I could check in and check out, and that is important. So for that urban environment, I think it's very important that we look at it from two phases. One, there is an urban calling. It's whitetail deer hunting. And secondly is that sometimes urban people or urban folk or suburban people want the escape. The escape is small game. Escape is very hard to be big game and to be successful. So I think that's the most I can elaborate on that topic without going too far down a rabbit hole.
Great, yeah, that's perfect. What's your guys' experience been with millennials who are first-time hunters and them experiencing their first kill?
Honestly,
do they have a negative reaction, or is it a little different?
I would say it's like, I mean, I've been with a lot of people that have shot their first deer, their first birds, and actually that's probably it. So I don't think I've been with anybody that shot their first rabbit or squirrel, but I'll tell you, when my wife shot her first deer, I cried, and she was virtually indifferent. She's 26 years old. I'm 36 years old. I know people that shot birds, and there was definitely maybe a restraint excitement, but not an outward expression. I think there was a lot of thought about what went into there, and I think an important part of that is a follow-through. The animal has to be eaten in that circumstance, because I think if there's any dread or bad emotion there, it's curbed by that. Me and Jesse have actually had this conversation more than once, and funny enough, I always say I feel bad after every animal I kill, which is crazy because I'm as diehard hunter as they come. And Jesse is also a diehard hunter, and he goes, I've never felt that experience. We're of similar age. I think it's unique to the person. I think, sure, can we generalize a generation? Sure, and I think if we generalize it, I feel like that the underlying message is that there just needs to be a justification. If there was a justification there, everything's okay.
Great. Any success with getting new millennial hunting without taking them? It is great to get them excited, but how do we bridge the gap?
Well, you know, and that's a great question. One of the most important parts of this is that a lot of states, nonprofits, organizations out there, Powderhook, perfect example, have put platforms in place that are proactively offering people the opportunity to mentor. Mentoring is just, in my opinion, is just so important. But the problem is, and the biggest gap that we've often missed here, is that inspiring people to just want a mentor, or inspiring people, period, to say that I want to be a hunter, I want to take this up, is the step that just doesn't, like, if we don't have that step, nothing else comes after. The point is like we're trying to go from A to C without B. If we don't do B, then the reality is that far less people are getting to C. People are going to fail on every step. Some people aren't going to be inspired. Some people are going to be mentored and not like it. Some people are going to be mentored, take up hunting on their own, and hate it. There's going to be failures in every single chain of this process. The point is that if we literally don't give people the fundamental emotion, that inspiration to say, I want to do this, then it's going to fail, period. So that's when I say stuff like hunting as conservation doesn't matter, is literally the point that conservation matters to everybody. It just doesn't matter when it comes to hunting, because they need a reason to hunt. When they killed that animal, and I talk about feeling the emotion of killing a first bird or first deer, the justification is on a plate. Their justification when they go home and lay to bed wasn't that, well, it was for conservation, it's okay. It's because they ate it. It's because it had practical application. So, I mean, I don't know how I could kind of answer that in a better way, but I guess I left some loose ends there. But
You kind of touched on the next question, which was you had stated how when recruiting new millennials, the hunting equals conservation doesn't really resonate with them. But maybe after you've recruited them, do you still find that for the conservation message, they're still seeking that after they maybe identify themselves as a hunter?
I think organizations like the Rough Grouse Society, which we work very closely, will be testament to people that are accurately recruited as hunters, and I often use this as an example. I became a rough grouse hunter, and then I became a member of the Rough Grouse Society. I am a millennial. Previous to being involved in the Rough Grouse Society, I was never aggressively involved in a nonprofit. When I became a grouse hunter, I felt like it was an obligation to be more involved in conservation. And I feel like millennials, and this gets down to that sense of entitlement, and taking it further, is millennials feel that buying a license is not enough. That is the basic requirement by law. RGS can testify that millennials are some of their most active and aggressive members. So I think once you've made that step, once you've inspired them to embrace hunting, once you've inspired them into the good life, you'll find that millennials are super passionate about the conservation side of this.
Right, and you got to kind of hook them on that, you see it on your plate aspect of it, and then it's almost like you want to conserve them because you want more of them on your plate. Almost, but
that's it. It's a selfish interest. It's the truth. But I mean, the reality is too is that again, like hunting as conservation is a multi-part step. I used the example earlier, the whole polar bear falling through the ice, or a rhino getting its horns sawed off, or that stuff is just like A to B. Boom, donate your money, done. What we're asking for people is not A to B, it's actually A to like Z. So it's important for us to not neglect the parts in between. Simple inspiration to get into the field is the fundamental step where we have talked. You can talk about conservation, but once you have people on the hook, that should not, and I'm not saying it should not, let me rephrase that. It should not be an outward message. It's important that we educate, we put facts out there. But the campaigns, the concept of recruiting hunters, needs to be built around why, the inspiration. Why is this a good thing? And the why is this a good thing is not conservation. It's because I'm a better person because of it. I have escaped into the wilderness. I'm a part of nature. I have put food on my table. I have occupied my time in a more healthy way than watching television.
Yeah, exactly. So we got 3 questions here. We got 5 minutes. Let's try and get these all answered, and then we'll wrap it up here. So obviously, Project Upland uses creative ways to engage millennials. What are some other creative ways to involve new hunters?
I think there's some great programs out there. Perfect example is that QDMA has their whole program where they're going into local food markets and actually having people taste venison and trying to mentor people. That is a very aggressive and effective grassroots campaign. We're an outward media company, so for us it's film, it's magazines, it's articles, it's engagement. We try to be a resource to people. We try to kind of be the first front. So it's the job of Project Upland to inspire somebody to hunt, and then it's the job of a state to foster that relationship, or a nonprofit. And we can try to foster that relationship too. We try to keep our articles up to date and content that resonates with people.
So you talked about celebrities and kind of influencers and whatnot. So why not get celebrities, actors, athletes who are hunters to promote hunting? They're seen as cool, and they can help make hunting look cool to others. Do you find that as an accurate kind of statement, or not so much?
It's a fine line. So there's certainly some relevance to a celebrity's reach. You can't dispute the fact that Michael Jordan has a far bigger reach than AJ DeRosa. But the reality of the matter is that street credibility. A lot of people in millennial generations and Generation Zs puts that jump into the concept that, well, the only reason why that person there is because they're privileged, because they're a celebrity, but they're a professional basketball player. They're not a hunter. Even if they are a hunter, there is a severe underlying resignation that's not cool to those people, because it's almost like, again, that concept of coffee. I like coffee, but in New England where I'm from, when I look at Tom Brady, I mean, I don't like football. It's not my thing. I don't think that Tom Brady did about what I like about coffee, nor does he have anything. I just know that he was paid a lot of money to tell me that it was cool, and that discredited him. And that's very important. It's about credibility, and the credibility is even if they are passionate about hunting, people still associate the fact that they've been paid to tell you it's cool, and that's not authentic.
Right. Yeah, there's only, we think of Chris Pratt, he's kind of an outspoken hunter, but, he's hunting where? He's hunting in California maybe. He's not hunting in your woods or your state or your area. So there's a lot more influential people and a lot more of them that are more along like kind of a local scale. So tapping into some more of those local influencers is probably a better way to go about it.
It's factually proven that influential marketers are stronger. And the reality is the reality of the perspective. Professional sports player or some kind of celebrity has the ability to go on a $50,000 bighorn sheep. I'm a professional inside this industry. I can't afford to do that. But you know what? I can get my dog. I can go out and I can hunt grouse in my town. That's inspiring. That's important. I don't find somebody who's a millionaire to be on the equal playing field of me, and therefore I don't find it authentic. And that's literally the reality of the millennial interpretation of that situation.
Perfect. Well, I think that about does it for our questions. Thank you guys for agreeing to do this for us. I think that everybody had some great insights. I know I learned quite a few things, so thank you for that. We're going to be sending you guys, everybody who registered on the R3 community website, everybody who registered, we're going to send them out a survey, and we're also going to send out a link to these guys' platform and their website and a link to some of their videos you guys can check out on YouTube and see kind of what their style is and what their message is and how they're reaching out to millennials and whatnot. So thank you guys again.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for attending. We'll talk to you next month.
Thank you, everyone.